set out to find the truth and investigate the effect of sugar in our diets.
An adult consumes on average 36 kilograms of sugar a year, and that's what's contained in this bucket. The vast majority of it is hidden in the food we eat and what we drink. Take low-fat products. Now, most people trying to lose weight will think that they're going to be good for your waistline, but they can contain an awful lot of sugar. A low-fat yoghurt like this can contain up to 14 teaspoons of sugar in a carton. As food companies have taken the fat out, they've put sugar in.
Well, is a sugar detox perhaps the answer? Joining me now from Sydney in Australia is author Sarah Wilson. She says sparked a debate after completely cutting out sugar from her diet. And Dr. Hilary is here too. Thank you so much for joining us, Sarah. How easy was it, though, to actually get rid of sugar from your diet? Because sugar appears to be in just about everything.
It is. It is. Look, it was quite difficult. I won't try to sugarcoat it, so to speak. It's a pretty gnarly substance to give up. I mean, there's a lot of research out there that's saying it's as addictive as cocaine and heroin. You know, I found that, you know, I went through an initial detox period of a couple of weeks. I did everything I could to ensure the process was as smooth as it could be. And of course, I've shared that information now with everybody. But yes, it is quite difficult, but I've got to say it's really been worth it.
But you cut it out absolutely completely. Why did you do that, to cut it out altogether?
Well, look, I cut it out altogether for 8 weeks because I'd done a lot of research into the way that addiction overall works, but also the way that sugar works when it enters our bodies. And I wanted to recalibrate my system so that it was no longer going through the roller coaster that, you know, sugar generally takes your body on. So for 8 weeks, absolutely no sugar, including in fruit. But after the 8 weeks, I gradually, you know, sort of weaned myself back onto sugar, and now I eat as much sugar as I feel comfortable with, which is generally sort of the amount of sugar contained in about 2 pieces of fruit, and then of course the sugar that occurs naturally in other vegetables, and every now and then a little bit of dark chocolate.
Yes, a little bit. You have to do that. You have to have a little bit of it. How do you feel? How do you feel now compared with how you felt before you cut the sugar?
Yeah, well, listen, I mean, I was actually really, really addicted, and I actually feel like I'm in a good position to preach this message because I found it extremely difficult. I had a health condition, an autoimmune disease, which I'm sure many of your viewers are familiar with, called Hashimoto's. It affects the thyroid. So it actually made it even more difficult than for the average person. So when I came out the other side of it, I found that, you know, my condition improved dramatically, and so much so that, you know, I've come off a large amount of my medication. I lost around about 10 to 12 kilos, and I'm not sure what that is in pounds for you over there. You know, my hair started growing back again, but most importantly, my moods stabilised. So I was no longer going through that kind of sugar high and low, which was making me feel absolutely terrible. And I think the most important thing is my appetite returned to, I guess, what our appetites were like when we were children, which is that I was actually hungry when I should be hungry, and I was full when I should be full, because sugar primarily mucks with that mechanism. And that's why, really, at the end of the day, I really encourage quitting sugar, because it mucks with that hunger mechanism. And that's why you're seeing all these health effects that you alluded to earlier at the beginning of the piece.
Well, we reckon you've lost about 22 pounds, which is extraordinary, Sarah. Well, Dr. Hilary is here as well. And Hilary, should we be... It's so difficult to cut back sugar because it's in so many things, isn't it?
Absolutely. We're talking largely here about added sugar.
Yes.
Not the sugar in milk, not the sugar in natural fruit,
yes.
Not the sugar in whole grains. Yeah. It's there anyway. It's about the added sugar that so many manufacturers put into their foods to make it more attractive to consumers. And it's that sugar that's doing the damage. There's no doubt that we eat far too much sugar. I don't go as far as to say it is as addictive as cocaine or heroin. I think that's a nonsense, and every drug dealer would be, you know, out of an illegal job if that were the case. But of course, it's difficult to give up the sugar content of food, and people find it difficult because they get the cravings for sugary things, the sweet things that they get used to. So it is difficult to cut down. but it is perfectly possible. And you know, I've been saying for years, cut down on all carbohydrates, not just sugar. Sugar is probably the ultimate carbohydrate. And it is also important. If you're at the top of a mountain in a blizzard, in a storm, and you're exhausted, what would you have to save your life? It would be a chocolate bar, you know, not a steak.
No.
So there is a place for it, but the body only needs a little bit. The body can only store a little bit. Excess is produced into fat. You make fat out of excess carbohydrate and glucose. So it's about a balance, but we all need to eat far less. I agree with that.
No, we do. And the trouble is you do have to be very careful looking at labels.
Yes.
Because as we saw from that documentary, that was a right eye-opener, that documentary last night. When it says fat-free on it, it doesn't necessarily mean it's all that healthy. It might well be, but not all the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know, you don't need... Fruit juice is particularly bad. Sweetened fruit juices are particularly bad. You don't need to put sugar in hot drinks. People do it by habit.
You do, actually, you're
and
right,
it makes tea and coffee taste exactly the same once you put 3 teaspoons of sugar in there. So, you know, cut down. Look at anything with O's on the nutritional label. Anything sucrose, fructose, lactose, it's all sugar. It's all basic, simple sugars, and they're all the end products of carbohydrates.
OK. Hilary, thank you. And Sarah, thank you very much indeed for joining us from Sydney. Doesn't she look like Kylie Minogue's sister? Thank you very much. Right, still to come this morning, an emotional